Wait for me!
All lifeform data successfully copied.
Wow, Metal Sonic sounds really wimpy without all the filters, doesn't he?
Let's live together.
Greetings everyone old and new, welcome to Haseo Reviews in part 2 of the 3D Sonic Marathon, now with an improved intro. After Sonic Adventure 2, Sega was in an odd spot. The Dreamcast wasn't selling as well as they hoped, 3 new consoles were on the horizon that all had better specs than their console, and the company, by all accounts, was bleeding money. So they made the decision to discontinue the Dreamcast, cease making consoles entirely, and work strictly as a third-party developer for other consoles. They really got this started by porting Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, in reverse order for some reason, to the Nintendo GameCube, along with a compilation of Genesis-era Sonic games with the Sonic Mega Collection. Sega had firmly established themselves as a big supporter of their former arch-enemy's console, but wanted to branch out to all 3 of the major players on the market to maximize their profits, as the GameCube was underperforming compared to the PS2 and Xbox. Upon release, however, Sonic Heroes split the fanbase in more ways than one. Some see it as the beginning of Sonic's Dork age, while others see it as the last hurrah of the Dreamcast-era games. Thus, the next mainline Sonic game, Sonic Heroes, would be the first Sonic game in history to debut on multiple platforms. On top of this, the game boasted a whopping 12-character roster, mixing series standards like Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles, bringing back fan favorites from the adventure games, introducing new characters, and reviving a trio who had been neglected since Knuckles Chaotix on the 32X. This wasn't just your average Sonic Adventure-style game, however, as Sega also sought to throw in callbacks to previous titles, making it the closest to a 3D Genesis game we'd seen at this point. But what do I think of it? Well, let's put the nostalgia goggles on and dive right in and see. Sonic Heroes' plot is much more simplistic than the previous entries, so I'll try not to spend too much time on the summary. Basically, our 4 teams of characters are all hunting after Eggman for various reasons. Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles were issued a challenge from him to stop his latest evil plan. Shadow, Rouge, and Omega want answers about how Shadow survived the ending of Sonic Adventure 2 and why he has amnesia, a treasure he's hiding, and revenge for deactivating and abandoning him respectively. Amy, Cream, and Big are looking for their missing friends and believe that Eggman has something to do with it. And finally, SBO, Vector, and Charmy are hired by a mysterious client to take down Eggman. There's really not much of a plot development beyond these initial setups and the payoffs at the end, apart from the occasional appearance of a redesigned Metal Sonic scanning data from various characters. Just like in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, there's a final story where we learn that Metal Sonic overthrew Eggman and locked him up, and was the real mastermind behind the game's events. He transforms into a monstrous new form in an overly long sequence. The teams battle him, he transforms again, Team Sonic uses the Chaos Emeralds to go super, they defeat him, and the day is saved. I think that might be the quickest plot summary I've ever given on this show. So, how about the gameplay? While the game advertised 12 playable characters, what you really get is 4 teams of 3 characters, each filling a certain role: speed, power, and flight. You can swap between team formations with the press of a button, and each formation has its own unique abilities. Speed characters can run faster, use the homing attack and rocket excel moves, can create tornadoes in midair for getting rid of pesky shields, and wall jump. Power characters can dish out more damage, use the triangle dive to float over upward drafts, and break certain objects. Finally, flight characters can fly for a limited time and can shoot their teammates at enemies for a ranged attack that also stuns them. Along the way, you can pick up power cores from defeated enemies, item boxes, or checkpoints, which increases the respective character's abilities. For example, a maxed out power character can do devastating combos that dish out massive damage and offer crowd control. As you pick up rings, defeat enemies, and generally do anything, your team gauge will fill up. Once it's full, you can perform a Team Blast, a screen nuke whose effects vary depending on the team you're playing as. Finally, Placed in specific spots in each stage are cages that have keys inside of them. If you pick up a key and manage to reach the end of the stage without taking damage or dying, you'll enter a special stage whose objective depends on what act you're on. Act 1 is a race to the finish down a fully 3D reimagining of Sonic 2's half-pipe special stages, where the reward is extra lives. Act 2 is a race against a Chaos Emerald where you have to catch it before it reaches the end of the track. Along the way, you'll pick up orbs that fill up your boost gauge, which allows you to temporarily run faster by pressing the boost button. Collecting all 7 Chaos Emeralds is essential, as it's one of the requirements for unlocking the final story. Selecting your team doesn't just affect who you play as, it also affects the stages themselves. Each character goes through the same levels in the same order, but the length, obstacles, enemies, and objectives vary from team to team. Team Rose has the shortest stages with the least amount of enemies, usually only covering half the length that the other teams get. Team Sonic has full-length stages with slightly more enemies to deal with. Team Dork has the length of Team Sonic's levels, but with vastly more enemies to deal with. Finally, Team Chaotix are the odd ones out, with each of their levels having a different objective, usually involving collecting a certain number of items or destroying a certain number of enemies. Team Rose, in my opinion, has the ideal stage length because some of the other team stages can range from slightly too long to painfully too long. Team Chaotix suffers from this issue the most due to their different level objectives. Some of them, especially the ones late in the game, basically require you to scour every last inch of the stage if you want to complete it without having to head back to the beginning and work your way back to whatever enemy or object you missed. Add in some tedious stealth missions where being spotted makes you lose a life in a game that is by no means suited for stealth gameplay, and you have the one team I always dread playing as during my playthroughs of this game. The stage length isn't the only problem this game has, however. The controls are incredibly slippery compared to how precise everything was in Sonic Adventure 1 and 2. Even a slight tap on the control stick sends your character speeding off in whatever direction you press, making it far too easy to accidentally fall to your death or run into enemy fire. The homing attack is also less precise than what the previous games had, with it only seemingly working whenever it feels like it. I could make a drinking game out of the number of times I lost a life to this specific pit that can only be crossed by homing attacking these ghosts. Even combat is more tedious now due to every enemy having a health bar instead of just dying in one hit, combined with some sections where you have to kill every enemy in the area in order to proceed. There was literally no reason to implement this, but unfortunately it ended up sticking around for the next few games. The only enemies in Sonic games that should have health meters are the bosses.
Finally, there's a much heavier emphasis on rail grinding, a feature I completely neglected to mention in my Sonic Adventure 2 review because it popped up so infrequently in the story mode. There are 2 entire stages built around this mechanic, and they're among the worst in the game because of how finicky switching rails is. I feel my whole body tense up every time the level requires me to switch the rail I'm on, because it's a complete crapshoot whether or not I'll actually hop to the next rail, or if I'll just jump to my death. The graphics in this game somehow managed to look worse than what was in Sonic Adventure 2, with everyone looking like they're made out of plastic. On the flip side, the level aesthetics are fantastic, with some details like the checkerboard patterns on the rocks in Seaside Hill looking like a mix between the Genesis era levels and Sonic Adventure 2. The music is also very upbeat and catchy, with some songs being serious earworms. My personal favorite has to be the Team Chaotix theme by Gunnar Nelson from the glam metal band Nelson.
What can I say? I love me some 80s hair metal cheese.
And both of Crush 40's contributions to the soundtrack, Sonic Heroes and What I'm Made Of. This was the last console entry in the series to feature the original LA voice cast, and for their last hurrah, they all turn in a great performance, even if the script itself is like a Saturday morning cartoon level of cheesy. Special mention goes to Ryan Drummond pulling a dual performance as both Sonic and Metal Sonic. I'm aware that Metal Sonic's performance is mostly in the post-production effects added to his original voice like I showed in the opening of this video, but he really makes Metal sound appropriately axe crazy. Besides, history has shown that Metal Sonic's voice could always be worse.
There is only one Sonic.
Time for the verdict, ladies and gents.
Sonic Heroes is a mixed bag for sure. The gameplay isn't as refined as Sonic Adventure 1 and 2, the stages sometimes drag on for longer than they should, there's too much work required to get the true ending by requiring you to complete special stages that are only compounded by the overly slippy controls, the story isn't anything noteworthy apart from bringing back Shadow and the Chaotix and introducing some newcomers, and the graphics aren't as appealing to me as what the previous games had. However, the music is fantastic like usual, the voice acting has improved even further, and the level designs themselves are beautiful.
Overall, I can still recommend this game to Sonic fans, but if you're looking for a good entry point into the Sonic series, I'd still recommend Sonic 2, Sonic 3, or Sonic Adventure 2 over this. That's 2 games down, 2 to go. Tune in next time for the franchise's attempt to appeal to the Hot Topic crowd with Shadow the Hedgehog. I'm Haseo, and I'll see you in the next one. Laters.
Hey guys, thanks for checking out the video. Hope you're enjoying the new intro that I created and the Sonic Marathon overall. I'm reopening my Patreon in addition to my Ko-fi account, so that way I can try and turn this show into something that I can get some sort of return on my investment out of, because whoo boy have I spent a lot of money on equipment and other such stuff for this so I can make it look as good as possible. You can check out my Facebook at facebook.com/SBGHaseo and my Twitter at SBGHaseo in order to keep up with me on what's going on and see my thoughts and get a somewhat of a schedule that I've got for when the next video is going to be coming out. Check out my Twitch in order to see live streams whenever I can actually be bothered to do them. Also, don't forget to check out Paradiox Productions for the Abridged series that I work on, and I'm starting a new fan-dub series of Mega Man Legends on a new channel called For the Love of Voices, where I'll also be participating in my friend Hiko's fan-dub of Vandal Hearts. I think that just about covers everything that I need to give a little shout-out or call-out to in this, so until next time, I'll see ya. Laters.